Hey everyone, how you doing? I often get asked when I do a live feed on whatever platform about my experience. Who's this guy talking about small business? What do you know about small business? Who are you to talk about small business? All right, let me go over my history of being in small business. I should say straight off the bat, right, when I was about 7, I tried to open up a cafe for stray dogs and stray cats out in the front yard of my grandmother's house, and I would have water and snacks and stuff like that, and I'd be there. I'd literally be there for ages, waiting for a cat or a dog to come by, but no one ever came, so we shut that down. Now, after that, fast forward a few years, I was about 10 or 11, I started working in my family's small business. Now, it wasn't my business, but it was a really good foundation for me to see and hear and learn what happened in small business, because I saw everything, you know what I mean? So just chucking that in to begin with. All right, let's get started on the actual businesses. The first business I started was when I was about 15. I was into skateboarding, and I started a small skateboard business. So I would buy products, trucks, bearings, wheels, decks, stuff like that, and sell them. This is pre-internet. I'm 52, right? So that was like mid-80s. So I'm just giving you a context now, timeline-wise. So pre-internet and internet. Pre-internet, different ball game. That business went under. I ended up taking a guy to court who I was buying supplies from, because I paid him money for decks and stuff and he never delivered. I ended up taking him to small claims court and won. But yeah, I think I was too worried about trying to pick up girls. That business kind of failed, you know what I mean? All right, so fast forward another few years. I was about 20, 21 at that time, so early 90s. I started my own clothing business. So I would literally go around. I had a route that I would go on all around Victoria, all around metropolitan Melbourne, down the coast, all that kind of stuff, and go to all the op shops, and I would buy all the vintage clothing. And then I would have a market at the Camberwell market, and I would sell it there on Sundays. And I made a killing doing that. Still to this day, probably the most profitable business I've ever had as far as margins go. I was buying things for 50 cents and selling them for like 70 bucks. So that did really, really well. I was making a lot of money back then. The reason that died off was most of the op shops, the prices went up and stuff like that. They cottoned on to people buying and flipping it and all that kind of stuff. This is before Gary V and all that kind of stuff, a long time ago. Just didn't become as profitable, did really well for a few years, and yeah, gave that up. But that did really well. I should have said too, before that, the clothing thing, because of going to art school and stuff like that, that was my first gig, is graphic design, illustration, design, all that stuff. And I paint as well. Now that's something, side business that I kind of do to this day. I still sell paintings and stuff like that. So that's another one just tucked in there. Okay, so after those ones, when I was in my early 20s, I started a street zine. There was an initial street zine, which was a bit arty, whatever. Then we started the second one, Flashback, and then we started 5 Venoms. There was about 4, I think, all up that I started, and it was literally just photocopies. I'd put articles together. This is pre-internet, so when I say cut and paste, it was literally cut and paste. Put it all together. I worked in the city. I was working for a bank, I think at the time, doing temp work, and I would just go down to the photocopiers, get it all photocopied, put it all together. Saturdays, just distribute it all over Melbourne. A couple went overseas, and get people to put ads in, and that paid for it. Didn't pursue that because I kind of got out of that scene, you know what I mean? So just didn't pursue the publishing side of things. And then after that, I kind of got out of that scene. Still in my 20s, started traveling around the world. Would do a lot of temp work, save money, go overseas. Started a travel vlog, tried to pursue that and get on board with like companies like Lonely Planet and other places like that. Didn't really take off, and I didn't pursue it. So I'm glad that I traveled so much in my 20s, traveled around the world a few times. But yeah, That was another one that just didn't pan out. Now, by this point in time, I'm in my early 30s, and I couldn't buy a home in Melbourne, too expensive, couldn't get a loan. All those problems that you talk about now with the economy and not being able to buy a place and all that stuff, it's been happening for quite a while, sorry to tell you. So rather than whinge and moan about it, I bought a property in the countryside. I thought, well, that's a way to get into the market, you know what I mean? And I started a self-sufficiency online videos, stuff like that, YouTube channel. I had about 10,000 subscribers. That was doing pretty well. ABC Radio offered me a weekly slot to talk about self-sufficiency, growing food, veg, raising livestock, all that kind of stuff. Had a book deal, put out some guidebooks. That was pretty good, actually. Did that for a few years and then moved, went back to suburbia, so kind of gave that up. Actually, I should say just after that, before I moved, but after the self-sufficiency stuff, I started another guiding company as well too, for people who want to go hunting, fishing, anything outdoor pursuits, for them to find a guide and take them out, blah, blah, blah. I was going through some mental health issues at the time, so that was the reason why that didn't go any further than that. And then I moved back to suburbia, out of the countryside. First thing I did, this was just, the pandemic was about a month away, and I just started a used furniture business. I had access to a lot of used furniture, which I would get and sell. The only reason why that stopped was, well, the pandemic kind of put a stop to a lot of things, and my access to the furniture dried up as well, so that just took its course. But because of the pandemic and being stuck indoors and all that kind of stuff, and because I was studying marketing and communications at night school at the time, I'd always been a writer. I still do write the odd article now. That's another little side hustle business as well. Not as much anymore. I've had over 300-400 articles published here and overseas, online and in print press. But it's not really a thing as much anymore, so I won't go into that. But because I was writing, I was doing a lot of copywriting, and then through networking, the area that I lived in, met other people who would get contracts for copywriting, and they would give me the contracts. I'd do the copywriting and get paid. That wasn't a bad gig. Contracts dried up, didn't pursue it. And then after that, which was just pandemic time still, round about just after the start of it, I started Launchpad. Launchpad was just initially to help people with small businesses and just to get them off, keep them going through the pandemic. And that's kind of evolved, and it's still going. It's evolved into more positivity mindset rather than marketing and communications. But that's it. There's a couple other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head in there. But they're the greatest hits. So if you're ever in the live with me or whatever, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, what the hell does this guy know? And I say, refer to the video where I talk about all the businesses I've started over the years, and some have done well and some haven't. This is the video I'm talking about. Success, my favorite quote, success is not a straight line. It goes up and down, deviates all over the place. The thing is to keep going. You've just got to keep going. Now I am literally doing some work now. I've come outside. I'm going back in to keep working. Keep going. If you're ever in doubt, keep going. All right. Look at me. I've just given you, 35 years of businesses. Still going. If I can do it, you can do it too. Just keep going. All right. Take care.